Returning to our overview of the candidates match in Moscow 1983 between Alexander Beliavsky and Gary Kasparov. Coming off in game 5, Beliavsky in round 6 again faced the Tarish, round 6, game 6, faced the Tarish once again, but still in this position, although there's a lot of pressure on that isolated pawn. Black was able to generate enough counterplay in the position to still draw the game. So, for instance, after Rook C1 and King H2 by Beliavsky, the game was agreed drawn. And White actually has to be careful in this position after Rook B1. In game 7, Kasparov had the white pieces. Again, went for his queen's gambit decline exchange variation. Beliavsky pulled out the Tartakower again. Hopefully it was repaired. And he played a different line this time. Okay, so he switched it up after getting himself into some trouble. He left alone a C5 and moved 10, which is what he had been playing here. Instead, he played this move knight e4, and after bishop takes, queen takes. The game was also soon drawn. Okay. This brings us to game number 8. Beliavsky again had the white pieces, and he's in a desperate situation where he does his confidence is growing. So here Beliavsky, after showing some improvement against Kasparov's Tarish in game 6, Kasparov decides to deviate. So d4, knight f6. Again, Beliavsky has white pieces. Kasparov has the black pieces. Game 8. c4. And again, Kasparov had been playing Tarish, and he did very well with it. He won game 2, and he drew another game. So here, the first time he deviated was game 4. He played an Nimzo Indian, and Beliavsky crushed him. So this time he goes back to his bread and butter, which is a King's Indian and Benoni, which is what he was playing at the time. So here he opts for the King's Indian. This is aimless attack from Beliavsky. D3. White, excuse me, black gets ready to set up his counterplay on the other side of the board. C5. And now D takes, B takes. Well-known pawn sacrifice here. Knight C6. Knight G2. Knight D7. Knight D5. Knight C1. Bishop H6. And you can see the purpose of it is to give black, its dynamic position, and which gives him the compensation for the pawn. 5, E6, Bishop E6, Queen G5. We see as a result of placing the pawns all on those light squares, the dark squares are tremendously weak. Castle from Beliavsky. And now E takes D5. And Beliavsky relying on F4 to return the piece. So Queen H4 from Kasparov. There it is. F takes D5. And now simply D4. And d4, again creating a wedge in the position. And what's interesting about it too is how the move cuts off the cuts off the dark squared bishop of white from returning. Remember, I told you that the dark squares were weak around the white king. So this move, d4, is like it creates a wedge in the position and cuts off this bishop from getting. Meanwhile, it supplies an outpost on e3 for Kasparov's bishop. So knight e2, check. Okay, so that pawn is there for a while. King h1, and now knight takes e5. Bishop c5. Now, of course, what happens if bishop takes d4 is that black just starts attacking now. Mate is threatened, h3, and then either bishop takes d4 can be played here, or a move like rook d8. Let's look at the obvious move. Bishop takes and knight d4, and then you just win the exchange. Simple chess. So bishop c7, queen e7, queen takes e5, and this is better. This is better for black, as black just gains the bishop here. And notice the impact that pawn on d4 is having on the white position. Just a total wedge in the dark squares. Now the white's problems are exacerbated because now the dark square bishops are gone. White's dark square bishop is gone. Black retains his, but I already told you that the dark squares were weak around the white king, and so now his bishop is gone. Right, so these are strategic situations that are just bad for white. Queen e1, just desperate move right here with really no objective except to trade the queens on g3. Kasparov just keeps it moving, developing. Queen g3, and he could take. I wouldn't take. I would keep developing. I would play a move like that. You know why? Why bring the knight over to f3 anyway, or g3 rather? Knight f4. Bishop c6. So just putting pressure on the isolated pawn on e4. Knight d5. So the knight finds a good home, and now queen takes g3. When the pawns get busted up, h takes g3. Of course, possible was knight f6 check. King h8, h takes g3, and then the rook moves out the way. Black still good. Rook e5, threatening mate on h5. g4, h5, knight f6, king g7, g takes h5, and again rook h8 with some mate threats. g3, giving the king some breathing room there. Rook e takes h5, knight takes h5, rook takes h5, king g2, so the hunt is on. f5, exploiting the diagonal, right? Rook a e1, f takes e4, bishop has to move back. Rook c5, b3, b5, and just notice the pressure that Kasparov just was relentless, man. He just would not give up on this guy. Rook takes e3. C takes. This is just winning for black. after b4. Rook takes e3, d takes e3. And Beliavsky's desperately trying. He figures if he can diminish the quality of the pawns, then it won't become a queen. But it's just too many things falling in White's position. So rook takes c4, rook takes e3. Bishop is attacked. b3. And this move right here is e3. This hurts. Discover check. King f1. And it's very hard. He wants to be able to get that pawn, but he can't. It's after a5. If the rook moves to capture the e3 pawn, then the bishop hangs down here. And this bishop right here controls the e2 square, and the pawn controls d2 and f2. So this king is like in a real shady position. The bishop e4. And now the bishop is free, so this pawn here is threatened. Rook takes, and now you have a same colored bishop ending with the extra pawn, so this is easy win. g5 for black. King c2. King e5. And Beliavsky resigned. For example, bishop g6, then just king d4. Okay, continuing on the march. So that's pretty much right there was the tip of the iceberg. Kasparov winning again with the black pieces. So at this point, Beliavsky's hopes at a world championship title are quickly coming to a halt. So with that, we'll catch you on the conclusion.